Good evening, friends, and welcome to a late night edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy, the man, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to get into the Karen Read retrial, day 7. There has been so much to talk about, and Ed has been doing the recaps for you guys. I hope you guys are enjoying that. Jen McCabe on the stand today, was on yesterday, I believe, or earlier this morning. She is now giving her testimony for the second time, and boy, is it a doozy. Ed, your thoughts?
Yes, it's Jen McCabe, part deux. Okay, she started off yesterday, and I got to tell you, folks, I'm going to give you all my impressions. Now, let me get again. Understand this: I've testified and been declared a forensic expert in 399 trials as of November 2024. That's right, last year, November 2024, I testified in my 399th trial. So I'm one trial away from 400. Okay. I teach crime scene investigations, right? And you know that I also teach my crime scene investigators how to testify in court. So what jumped out at me immediately is a whole change, a makeover of Jennifer McCabe from the last trial. She's got the hair, she's got the tan, everything is done. I can see immediately she took some training or she's been coached. She denied it on the stand, and I think she may have perjured herself by doing that, okay, because she's definitely done it. Now, when she was questioned about it again, she says no, but given the amount of law enforcement family members that she has, how hard would it be for one of them to pick up one of the training videos on how to testify in court and give it to her and let her study? Okay.
Yeah, she certainly seems well polished, Ed, right?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. 100%. She's doing things that civilian witnesses don't normally do. She gets the question from whoever's asking the question, whether it's the prosecutor or the defense attorney, and then she's turning to the jury to give the answer. That's what professional witnesses do. That's what I teach my crime scene investigators to do. Okay. There's other things I noticed, but I know we'll get to it later because Ron wants to show a little clip here to bring us up to speed.
And Ed, and to piggyback off of what you're saying here, I watched some of her testimony in the first trial because we covered this extensively, and we didn't see any of that in the first trial. We saw a very defensive Jen McCabe, a very different persona. She was not polished the way she is here, looking, smiling, making eye contact with the jurors, even when her back was against the wall. We'll listen to some of her testimony. We can't listen to it all, but even when her back was against the wall and she was completely caught by the defense on cross, she smiled.
Yes, she didn't lose it like last time. She did not lose it like last time. I thought there was a point that she was going to do it, but she pulled herself back.
Yeah, let's listen to this. Day 7 recap.
His turn to ask questions in Karen Read's trial. The defense's turn to ask questions in Karen Read's trial today, trying to show inconsistencies in Jen McCabe's testimony about the morning that she and Karen Read found John O'Keefe's body.
The defense team tried to trip her up on her own words, but as WBZ's Christina Rex reports, McCabe kept her composure during this intense cross-examination.
How did Jen McCabe another witness, another instance of perjury, or instances, I'd say.
And I wanted to also, we'll let the rest of this play after I ask you this. This is something interesting. And in Karen Read's first trial, when we saw this first trial, she did not make any statements after any day in court. She was silent. She did wave to her fans. She did maybe personally talk to them, but never giving TV interviews. She's now got several mics in front of her face, and she's giving her thoughts. And obviously, this is her defense team advising her to do this. But there's some talking heads that said when she gave all those interviews, that was not a good thing. Like on screen 60 Minutes or whatever she did.
Yeah. I
Not
would have to agree with that. I would have to agree with that determination. Yeah, her lawyer should not have let her gone on those interviews, because again, you saw how those interviews were used against her by the prosecutor in this case.
Mhm.
So the odds are she's not going to testify. So he used those interviews as her testimony. All right, to impeach her. She should not be out in front of the cameras. That's my opinion. All right, she should be looking the victim that she is. Okay. And she should not be out in front of the cameras after each day of court talking to the press like this. That's just my opinion. Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's not something that does anything good for the defense. So
now let me give this caveat though to the news reporting. I watched the trials the whole days. Since the beginning. We're on day 7 now. I've been watching all day of trial, okay, taking notes and everything. And then after I'm done watching the trial, I'll go to the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock news around the nation, up in Boston, here in New York, even like the CNN, Fox News. They're all covering it, which they didn't do the last time.
Mhm.
And I watch various news shows, and I'm sitting here. And I'm scratching my head and I'm saying to myself, were these reporters watching the same trial that I was watching? And it just goes to show you, I could see a lot of bias in the reporting. And I could see a lot of ignorance of court procedures and other things that are occurring. But, you watch this and you tell me what you think if you watched the trial today.
here we go.
Another witness, another instance of perjury, or instances, I'd say.
That was defendant Karen Reed's takeaway from a full day of Jen McCabe's testimony.
It's just more of the same. Inconsistencies, every statement's different. Under oath, not under oath, with the cops are all wrong.
McCabe told prosecutors that after 6 a.m., after finding John O'Keefe's body in the snow,
she started yelling and pulling on me to Google hypothermia and Google how long it takes for somebody, to die in the cold.
Had you ever attempted to search about hypothermia anytime before that moment, that morning?
No.
Or that day?
No.
Karen, did you tell Jen to make that Google search that morning at 6:23?
I did not tell Jen to make a Google search. I certainly didn't tell her to make the one at 2:27 either.
But according to the defense, McCabe could be a master manipulator who coordinated testimony in a cover-up to frame Karen Reed.
That is another example of you coordinating information with other witnesses in this case, correct?
No, that is not correct.
There were a few tense moments.
As we're fighting over silly words, whether I said as I got out of the car, were you there?
Words matter. They matter a lot.
From last year's testimony.
But overall, a very different, more subdued Jen McCabe on the stand this trial compared to last.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony?
That was good. That was good. Here's the testimony from the first trial. This is her at the first trial. And then they showed this picture from her today.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony in any way to suggest a softer approach?
No.
She seems calm in her demeanor. She's not trying to explain things as much as she was last time. And I think that's largely attributable to the fact that she's testified so many times at this point.
And just to note, there's no court in this case on Thursday. It is a court holiday. So Jen McCabe will be back on the stand first thing Friday morning for what's expected to be about 2 more hours of cross-examination.
So Ed, I want to just go back to you because, we had a moment to discuss. I was at Sloan Kettering all day today with testing, but I didn't get a chance to watch this live. And as you indicated, you've been watching the trial all 7 days. You've been taking copious notes. You're a very detail-oriented person. What were some of the major takeaways for the wins of the defense, and if there were any wins for the prosecution as it pertains to Jen McCabe's testimony?
Okay, so wins. They got her to admit that she lied to the FBI when the FBI came to interview her. She lied to them twice. When they approached her at a car, she said she was somebody else's name. She wasn't Jennifer McCabe, and then she went into the house. They called her from right outside. They knew it was her. they called her on the phone and identified themselves. And they said, we'd like to come interview. She said, give me 10 minutes. In that 10 minutes, she made 5 phone calls. She called her husband, right? She called the Alberts. Okay. She called Kerry, and she called John O'Keefe's mom. And I forgot who else she called. Maybe Proctor. I'm not sure. I know she called 5 people.
She called Trooper Proctor, who's
Right.
now fired.
Right. And then when the FBI came in, she let him in after 10 minutes. She did that in 5 minutes, right? So she called several law enforcement people, and then she was asking the other witnesses, did they come talk to you? Did they come talk to you? What'd you say? Oh, this kind of thing, right? There was a lot of collusion going on here, a lot of conspiracy going on between all of these witnesses, and this should never have occurred. Okay, they should have been instructed by the prosecutor and the law enforcement not to do this. But law enforcement screwed up from the get-go. But we'll get back to that.
She also called the DA, Ed. I remember that. Thank you.
She called the DA victim advocate. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
She called witness advocate. She called the DA's office. That's correct. I'm not sure about Proctor, but definitely the witness advocate at the DA's office. But here's the deal: she lied to the FBI. She only said she called 2 people. Okay, and then she spoke to somebody.
Ed, what happens when you lie to the FBI?
Well, they told her up front before they started interviewing, lying to us in this interview is a federal crime. All right, if you go to the Code of Federal Regulation, Title 18, CFR 1001. Okay, material lie to the FBI is a crime. Okay, so she got advice from somebody after they left. Hey, you lied to the FBI. You need to call them immediately and fix that lie. Right? Yeah. So what do we know? Her first instinct is to lie. If she has nothing to hide, why did she lie? If she had nothing to hide, why is she calling all these people? Okay. Right. All right. So from the get-go, so that was a win. She got to admit that she lied. All right. Now, by law, if the jury has been made aware that a witness has lied, they can disregard the entire testimony of that witness.
It's all deemed inadmissible, correct?
Right. Well, it's not that it's inadmissible. They can just disregard the testimony. You'll hear it at the closing. I'm sure the defense team is going to bring that up. So we have multiple witnesses here that have already perjured themselves. Okay. Now, let's back up a little bit. There's all kinds of lies with the timelines. Things aren't matching up. Let's talk about some of the law enforcement screw ups again. Okay, so law enforcement gets on scene after they find John O'Keefe. Okay, and then they don't control the scene. They put John in the ambulance, and the ambulance goes away. I learned today from Jenna McCabe that one of these officers was taking notes, but nobody seems to know where the notes are, and documenting. Who said what, right? And then, due to the incestuous nature of this copland town of Canton, where everybody knows everybody and everybody's related to everybody, and there's so many cops that live there, the cop tells Jen McCabe to go in to her sister and brother-in-law's house to check on them. Excuse me, hold a second. There are lights and sirens all over the place, right? There's yelling. Karen is yelling all over the place. Their bedroom window overlooks where the body was. They don't hear this. They don't get up. So, I have this stuff happen in my neighborhood. My neighborhood is full of cops and firemen. Okay. I get lights, I see lights in my sleep coming through the window. I'm up. I hear yelling and screaming. I'm up with my wife, and we're out the door looking to see what's going on, right? They don't get up. They don't do anything. It's not reasonable. Okay. Next, they tell Jen to go in the house. You got a dead body on the front lawn of a cop's house. It's a cop's house, right? You don't go in and clear the house. You, law enforcement, you don't go in to see how, what's going on inside the house, if the occupants of the house are okay, or are they dead too? And they're
how about if the perpetrator is still on scene? You have a Boston police cop, John O'Keefe, dead on the front lawn of a Boston cop's home.
Mhm.
And Ed, you brought it up so well.
Mhm.
He didn't even know that the police, according to his testimony, that the police were outside and that what was going on with the fire trucks and all of the lights and sirens, the EMS.
He's got a 70-pound German Shepherd that is not friendly towards anybody, apparently. Okay? My dog, Kara, you can't walk in front of my house. You can't even try to approach my front door. Okay?
Yeah.
You can't park in front of my house without her barking and in my front living room window or at my front door seeing what's going on outside. Okay? It's just not happening. And that's all hours of the night. She could be in a dead sleep on the sofa. She'll hear a car door. Boom, she jumps up and she's at the couch on the window barking. Okay? Where's the dog? The dog allegedly sleeps in the bedroom with the husband and wife in the Albert's house. All right?
Yeah.
So the sister-in-law comes in, Jen goes in, goes right up the stairs. I don't know about you, Ron, but you bust into my house. If I'm asleep with, in bed with my wife, you bust into my bedroom, wake me up out of a cold sleep. That's going to be a fatal mistake on your part.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
So anyhow, it's just none of this is reasonable. None of this makes sense, right? Law enforcement doesn't clear the house. Law enforcement, and then law enforcement gathers everybody up in the house and interviews everybody in front of everybody. This is criminal investigation 101. You don't do that there. You bring everybody back to the station house, you separate them, and you interview them on tape.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't happen here. They bent over backwards to accommodate the McAlberts. Okay. They interviewed them at their places of residence, not at the precinct on videotape. Okay. And then in the trial today, every report that dealt with an interview of Jennifer McCabe, from whatever police officer it was or trooper, is wrong. Didn't document what she said properly, right? Because she didn't say, I hit him. She said, she questioned, do you think I hit him? Could I have hit him? She said it in those manners because in the grand jury, she testified to that in the grand jury. She never said in the grand jury, I hit him. Okay? And folks, let's back this up. In the last trial, that whole thing about the grand jury minutes of her testimony being 227 pages, it's ironic. 227 pages, 227 the search, 227 the time she got on the stand yesterday to start her testimony. This is pretty crazy number wise, right? If you're into the numerology and all this stuff, right? That said, okay, before you go testify, the prosecutor is going to bring you in a couple days before you testify, and he's going to sit you down and do what's called a trial prep. So she should have been given her grand jury minutes to read, her testimony from the grand jury. Back at the first trial, she doesn't have anything. If she went to the grand jury defense, she should have been given that as well.
Yeah, agree.
To prepare herself. At the prep, the district attorney is going to give you the questions they're going to pose to you so that you can formulate your answers. They're not supposed to tell you how to answer the question because that's illegal.
Right.
And that's unethical.
Yeah.
Okay. They just give you, they have the questions typically written out and they give them to you. Okay. Or they'll ask you the questions and see how you're going to answer it.
It's trial prep 101. We've all been through it, and anyone who's been a witness for the state has been through trial preparation. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right. Now, she testified possibly in a federal grand jury. She testified in a state grand jury. She testified last trial.
Right.
Okay. Now she's coming to this trial. And her testimony, she says she was not prepped. She was not given questions. She was not prepared. They didn't bounce things off each other. Is this subordination of perjury by the prosecutor? Because if she's up there perjuring herself, lying, and he knows that she, one, either took trial prep I'm sorry, either took courses on how to testify, or she was trained by somebody, or he prepped her and gave her questions and then prepped her about what the defense is going to do. There's no way that he would be allowed. It'd be misconduct on his part not to prep the witness. And she should have had the testimonies from both grand juries, the testimony from the last trial. So she should have been able to have read through all of that before she gets on the stand. And she should know the questions that he, the prosecutor, is going to pose to her.
Yeah, when she sat and looked at those 220 some odd pages, she looked at the defense attorney, Alan Jackson. She was like, I'd have to read through all of this.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's where another case where I think she perjured herself. She should have read.
Let's listen to her try to. You're right. She should have read through those pages and prepared herself before
That's
this.
right. And she did this in the last trial. She did the same bit in the last trial about the grand jury testimony being that long.
Let's listen to Jen McCabe explain the lies that she told to the cops in the Karen Reed trial.
You also testified in your direct examination, staying with Ms. Roberts for just a second, about a timeline that you and Ms. Roberts put together, correct?
Yes.
That's another example of the two of you talking about your own perceptions and comparing and contrasting those perceptions and putting it down on paper, correct?
No,
Yes or no?
it's a no. Can I explain or no?
I'm sure Mr. Brennan will have follow-up questions.
You can't explain, lady.
After you gave that answer to those law enforcement officers at that separate law enforcement agency, they asked you, was there anyone else that you contacted in that 10-minute period before we got a chance to talk to you? And your answer was no, correct?
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
It wasn't a lie. No.
Was it true? Was it the truth or a lie?
It wasn't a lie.
Okay, so it was the truth. You had not spoken to any other person between the time they contacted you telephonically and you said, I need 10 minutes, and then they came in the door. During that part of time, you didn't talk to anybody else or contact anybody else other than Matt McCabe, Carrie. Now you're testifying that is a true statement.
I can't answer that yes or no.
And Ed, why can't she answer that yes or no?
Because she knows she spoke to 5 people. It is a lie. Or technically it's a lie. Okay. Yeah, it's a lie. And for those of you who said AJ didn't impeach her, he just did. He impeached her.
He totally.
Now the jury, all the jurors know she lied to the FBI, although they never used the FBI, the other law enforcement agency. Okay. She is now not credible. Okay. Not only that, then another golden spot of this for me was, because he goes through this and he says, don't worry, I'll help you out. Because nowhere in that grand jury testimony do you ever say that Karen said, I hit him.
Right.
Okay. It's not there. These are the answers that you gave. Right. And she's playing games. Okay. And again, the district attorney knows if he prepped her or not. And if he allowed her to perjure herself, he is now committed a crime. Okay. Subordination of perjury. Okay. There's no way that he allowed her to get on that stand without doing trial prep for her. Okay.
Agreed.
That is just bullshit. It doesn't work that way. All right. Next, I believe, again, AJ got her with the text messages to John O'Keefe and the vehicle being in front of the house and the different positions, the vehicle. So she texted John about 5 times. Okay. Seemed a bit excessive to me. All right. But maybe she knew a little bit more about what they wanted to happen at that house. That's why she wanted to separate Karen from John at the bar. She said, oh, Karen, you come with me. And, and then John will go with them back to the house. Right.
Yeah. And it didn't work.
There was a planned confrontation, in my opinion, here. Okay.
Or they knew, or she obviously they probably knew there was going to be something going down.
Yes.
Something was going to happen, and she was trying to separate them. That's a good observation, Ed.
So, I mean, because you saw what happened in the bar. There was hostilities in the bar with Higgins and Albert and all this stuff, and it was pointed in John's direction. And there was this love triangle, right? There was the text going back and forth between Higgins and Karen, right?
Right.
That said, but every time she gave a text to John, she was at the door, the storm door, looking through the window, and saw the three different positions of the vehicle. And by the fourth text, the vehicle was gone. And that's all timestamped. All those texts are timestamped. Okay. So they know the time. So when she went for the fourth text, she said she went to the window, out of the door, she looked, and the car was gone. Then he hit her hard. Now, did you see the body? Did you see John O'Keefe lying on the lawn, on the front yard? The car was gone, right? You looked in that direction. You looked in all these positions that the vehicle was that you saw them in the past. And the car is gone. Did you see John O'Keefe laying by the flagpole on the ground in the front lawn? And she had to eventually say no. She didn't see him.
Let's listen to the rest of it. Yeah. Let's listen to the rest of this because this gets good.
Talk to anybody else or contact anybody else other than Matt McCabe. Now you're testifying that was a true statement.
I can't answer that yes or no.
It's a pretty binary. Had you talked, well, let me ask you this. In point of fact, you did talk to other people. Did you contact others in addition to Matt McCabe and Kerry Roberts, right? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So when you said no to the answer, did you contact anyone other than Matt and Kerry? That would be, by definition, Mr. McCabe, a lie. Correct?
No,
It's not a lie? Is there some shade of lie?
it's the way you're asking the question. If I
Okay,
could
let me ask it a different
explain, if I could explain,
Let me ask you
it
a
will
different
make
way.
more sense to you.
The agents asked you. Let me go.
I got to stop it right here because I don't want to go into this, Ed, but I want to highlight this question just to show this Vicky Secrets has.
Okay. I saw it. I saw it, and I was going to highlight it myself. So we're thinking the same. And I'm quite insulted.
Yeah. Because if she was watching us, she would know wholeheartedly that we call the balls and strikes. And the bottom line here is, if you have a small slither of intelligence and you've been paying attention to the evidence and what's being presented, it's a no-brainer here. Vicky Secrets, I don't know who she is, or I've never seen her before, but that comment shows the people who are here a long time. It shows that this person is obviously not paying attention to both you and I of what we do. Ed, go ahead.
I practice forensics. I'm a man of science, and I'm a man of reason. Okay. And I always look at things from that perspective. And I also follow Occam's razor, which states, all things being equal, the simplest of explanations tends to be the truth. Okay. I'm not the one that testified that there was no body on the front lawn after she saw the car leave, after the car left. She said that. Okay. Her testimony in the grand jury says she didn't say, I hit him. She said, do you think I hit him? Could I have hit him? Those were questions. Okay. That said, I said, I practice science. I follow the leads. The science shows, the physics shows John O'Keefe was not hit by a car. The accident reconstructionists showed and proved, and boy, are they going to have more to testify now. Okay. So I don't pander to anybody. I have years of experience in this, and I can smell bullshit. Okay. And when somebody is lying, okay, I don't need a polygraph. Okay.
And there are a bunch of liars here in this case.
And I also know how people react to certain things. Now, we've had numerous high-profile cases that we've highlighted on our show where people murdered other people and then pretend to have found them dead. And then you see how they react when they find their loved one dead. They just can't fake the real deal. You see the way Karen is acting out there on that scene. It's all on videotape. That is not fake. That is not staged, okay? That's real, okay? As opposed to, say, the adopted parents of the West Boys.
Yeah.
Or some other family members, like the case in Florida. The 13-year-old who just was murdered by her mother's boyfriend.
Oh, Ed, the Soto case. Yeah, man.
Soto case.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not up here to pander to anybody. Okay, I let the case lead me where it's going to lead me, and I let the chips fall where they may. Whether it's law enforcement corruption, or law enforcement malpractice, or law enforcement screwed this up. It is what it is. All right. I'm going to stick up for my fellow people in blue. If they screwed up, they screwed up. They got to own it. Okay.
Yeah,
If they didn't, there was no crime scene investigation here. They never called the crime scene unit. They called a search team.
This is a colossal screw up. You can't, Ed, you've said this hundreds, arguably thousands of times. Crap in, crap out. And
that's right.
If you screw up a crime scene investigation with the evidence, red Solo cups, putting in a stop and shop bag. Look, we did
no chain of custody, no photographs, no sketches. All right. The two searches revealed nothing. And then finally, after the two searches, they start finding the alleged pieces of the taillight.
This isn't about going with the popular opinion. This is about going where the science takes us. This is about going with our experience and listening to people testify. And
the forensic snowblower.
This woman right here is lying.
Allowing all the witnesses to get together and then they do a timeline, a written timeline, and she blames it on John O'Keefe's mother told them to do this.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
Let's listen to more. I thank you, Ed, for taking that. And listen, I had to address that because it wasn't an attack on that person, but it's just, I want people who are watching this that are not somebody who watches our show on a regular basis that just stumbles across this to understand where we're coming from. And
but all of that is, I get it. All of that aside, what I just said, the last trial, a jury of her peers acquitted her of 2 of the 3 charges. And based upon a technicality, because of the way Judge Bev handled the hung jury, without polling the jurors, hey, are you hung on all the charges or is it just one? She didn't do any of that. She just dismissed the jury. She's hung jury, dismissed them after several, sending them back several times and doing some of the instructions that she's required to do. But coming now, going forward, knowing judge and prosecutor, knowing that jury acquitted her of 2 of those charges, and still coming back at that defendant with all 3 charges to recharge and retry them on all 3 charges. That's just bullshit. And if they can do it to her, they can do it to me, they can do it to Ron, they can do it to everybody that's in this chat right now. Okay?
100%.
Everybody should be outraged by this. Knowing the truth and hanging their hat on a technicality, the prosecutor and the judge chose to proceed with retrying her on all 3 of those charges.
I hope that this has let everybody know who's watching this where we stand as it pertains to what we've seen thus far, what we saw from the first trial, and what we're going to continue to see. Let's listen to a little bit more of this. Thank you, Ed. I love it when you get fired up.
There's one more time, then I'm going to move on. The agent asked you, in fact, did you contact anyone between the time we called you and set up the interview and the 10 minutes before we walked in the door? They asked you that question, correct?
Stop right there.
Conviction sustained.
Stop. Folks, did you see the eye movement of Jennifer McCabe towards the prosecutor? Every time she gets a tough question that she knows that she's going to have an issue with to answer, she will look at the prosecutor and to me, it's like a signal. Object. And you see it. You see it time. Every time she looks, he objects. And Judge Bev, what does she do? Sustain. Not once did I, maybe once or twice today, she allowed something for the defense team. But most of it was not. It was against the defense team. It was objection, sustain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's look at it in slow motion again when she looks to the prosecutor, the Commonwealth, to help her. Here, watch this.
We set up the interview, and the 10 minutes before we walked in the door, they asked you that question.
Look where she's looking.
Correct?
The objection sustained.
She looks, he objects, she sustains. Okay.
And then we move on.
Now, keep watching as the testimony goes forward and we show more clips. Keep watching her do that.
I'm sorry. I meant the law enforcement agency. That law enforcement agency, the members of that law enforcement agency contacted you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. They asked you who you had contacted between the time they first telephoned you and walked in the door 10 minutes later. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Data point number one. Data point number two, you told them Matt and Karen. Right?
Correct.
You see, she turns toward the jury and gives her answer. That comes from training. She's not a professional witness. Civilians don't normally do that when they're testifying.
And she didn't do it in the first trial. Never.
That's right.
Do that.
They then asked you, did you contact anyone else other than Matt and Karen?
Correct.
And you said no. Is that correct?
At that moment, I said no. Yes.
Correct.
No, at that moment, because they had just come in my house.
Only one person can talk at a time.
You said the word no.
She was finishing her answer.
She's defending her. She was finishing her answer.
Well, see, that's another thing with Judge Bev. When a witness is being unresponsive to a question and they're going off on a tangent, the person asking the question, whether the prosecutor or the defense attorney, has the right to jump in there and reel them back in. But Judge Bev jumps in every time and allows these witnesses to go off on a tangent unresponsive to the question. And that's just bullshit too.
Yeah, it is. And it's so obvious. Thank you, Magalia Kane, for the $9.99 super chat. She says, Occam's razor. For sure, Mr. Wallace. My dad was an honest homicide detective, and I learned maybe too much. I love your fierceness and righteousness. What an awful story. Yeah, because at the end of the day, the O'Keefe family and the decedent, the person who was murdered here, arguably, John O'Keefe, police officer John O'Keefe in the Boston Police Department, is not getting justice as it stands right now. But we will see at the end of this trial. And it's going to be up to, depending on what the outcome is, it's going to be up to the Commonwealth to figure out who did this. And they're not going to do it. Look, we have many notable trials like O.J. Simpson. We could go on and on. People who have been acquitted, and they never reeled in who murdered these people. So it's a sad situation, and it doesn't seem like anybody is going to get justice here.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm praying to God that that's not the truth. I'm praying to God that this case breaks open. But that said, no, this case would never have been tried in New York City. You got a medical examiner that did not find a manner of death. And with that alone, they are not going to move forward with this. Okay. Next, no chain of custody, no crime scene investigation. Okay. you have all this inappropriate behavior by the lead investigator. Okay, we already know the feds are involved because of another case with the same players where a cop murdered his in an extramarital affair, murdered his girlfriend who was pregnant with his child. And then they made it a suicide, and until the feds stepped in and figured it all out and had the autopsy changed to a homicide, locked this guy up. Okay, so there's a lot of issues in this jurisdiction. Okay, and even if this trial doesn't, we don't get the outcome that that should happen based upon the evidence or the lack thereof, this town, this prosecutor, that police agency, and all involved need to be investigated.
They're a disgrace in my eyes. I said it before and I'll say it again during the first trial. I would never ever visit Canton, not because I don't love the people who live there. There's probably some good people that are there, but their police department is they do not know how to investigate crimes. And if I was ever a victim of a crime there, I know that it would be really a shoddy investigation. I'm being nice about it here. Let's listen to the rest of this.
I had said no because I'm going
to go ahead, Ed.
Keep an eye on her. Keep an eye on her eyes and what she does.
I was in a situation where there are two officers from a different agent had come in, were asking me questions, or they had said, can I come in and ask you questions? At first, I thought they were selling something. Then they identified themselves. I just dropped my kids off at school. Going to be completely honest. I hadn't brushed my teeth. So I kind of made some phone calls.
She's trying to appeal to the jurors. She's not looking at the defense attorney. She was looking directly at that jury box.
And she's not answering the question that was posed to her. She just went off on a tangent and just was a runaway witness. Okay. Yeah. Had to be reeled back in.
I need to gussy myself up for the FBI as they're at my front door. I need to go brush my teeth and fix my hair for the FBI.
Well, look what she does too when she's testifying, how she shakes her head no and shakes her head yes. And look, it's the opposite of what she's saying.
Jennifer McCabe gets a
"Oh, hell no"
from me, and probably from you too, Ed.
To be completely honest, I hadn't brushed my teeth.
Stop right there. In New York, a defense attorney would have jumped all over that statement to be completely honest. And then she continued with her answer. Because the next question, I've seen it happen numerous times. The next question that was going to come out of the defense attorney's mouth would be, to be completely honest, does that mean that everything you told us before now was not honest? You never, and I teach my people when they testify, to never use things like that, to be honest with you, to be completely honest. You never do that. Okay? And now I also train prosecutors about courtroom testimony, never to advise their witnesses to tell the truth. Okay? Because this is what's going to happen. The defense attorney is going to get up and is going to ask you a question. Did you discuss this case with the prosecutor? Yes, I did. Okay. What did they tell you to say? And typically what prosecutors tell witnesses to answer here is, they told me to tell the truth. Terrible, terrible. No, you should never do that. Because you know you have to tell the truth. On the penalty of perjury, you're swearing in. You know that's your obligation. So what I teach my students to do is you turn that and you flip it back on the defense attorney. And you say, sir, you know that it's illegal for the prosecutor to tell me what to say in my testimony. Because if you said to tell the truth, the next question out of the prosecutor is going to be, why is that, detective? Why is that, Joe Blow? Do you have a problem telling the truth? Does the prosecutor not trust you to tell the truth?
Yeah. Let's listen in again.
Then they identified themselves. I just dropped my kids off at school. Going to be completely honest. I hadn't brushed my teeth.
She's shaking her no. She's shaking her head.
No. Yeah.
She's shaking it. No, while she's saying, I'm going to be completely honest with you. And then she shakes her head, yes. Watch, just continue.
I just dropped my kids off at school. Going to be completely honest. I hadn't brushed my teeth. So I kind of made some phone
Objection, Your Honor.
calls.
This is
That-
non-responsive.
that's, so next question.
Thank you. Ms. McCabe,
Mhm.
after you said no, that you hadn't contacted anybody else,
Mhm.
those two law enforcement officers from that separate agency who had told you it was a crime to lie to them, they left, correct?
Yes.
Subsequent to that, Mr. McCabe, objection.
Sustained.
They left you their card so you could call them if need be, correct?
Yes, they did.
And you in fact did call them back, correct?
Yes, I did.
Without telling me the content of the conversation you had, did you have a conversation with Mr. McCabe? Objection.
Sustained.
Did you call them back and say, I'm calling you back because my husband told me that I lied to you?
See the eyes? You
And
see the
I
eyes?
hear that lie up.
So sustained. Jurors, remember I
And she closed them.
told you before that only answers to questions are evidence? Be mindful of that.
They were
Next, yes.
Thank you for the super chat. KH says great coverage of this trial. Thank you, Bree Karen. A short sidebar there, and then they continue. I'm going to fast forward it.
And this is 7 days into this trial, and I got to tell you, I've never seen this many sidebars in any trial that I've ever been.
Ultimately,
Yeah. I want to get through this because he doesn't let up on her, which any good defense attorney sees the jugular. You know, he went for it. And this is going to continue on Friday. No court tomorrow. I want to thank everybody for the super chats as well. And thank you to the moderators. You guys are doing a great job. Clicker AK, thank you for becoming a new member. Grains Neverland, thank you for being a member for 4 months. She says, or he says, there's one in every crowd. I agree. And look, listen, that question, that statement that we highlighted, it wasn't, you know, a key for everyone to just jump on the pile and go and bash that person. She's entitled to her opinion, but I wanted to highlight that opinion is a very skewed one. And that's really what Ed and I did. And we did it with our passion for justice. We are, you know, one of probably many YouTube channels that are out here trying to give you our personal, professional perspective from a law enforcement perspective, and from someone who has walked the walk, talked the talk, been in these side of courtrooms and given testimony. Ed told you guys he's testified at almost 400 trials. I've been at countless grand juries giving testimony and at countless trials during my career. You know, been involved in big RICO cases and things of that nature. So when we give it to you guys, it's not just that we're talking out of our butts. We're talking to you guys from New York City police detectives' perspective, and that's pretty much what we tell you in the beginning of every show. And that's what you're getting. It's not somebody that's sitting at home on their couch just reading Google ads and Google articles and reading about stuff. We're giving it to you from our perspective.
Called these officers back, correct?
Yes.
And you explained to them that you had been untruthful with them, correct?
I explained that I had forgotten to mention a couple of people that I had reached out to.
You had forgotten.
A couple? Wasn't it 5, Ed?
She did 5. She told them 2.
Unbelievable.
Is that your testimony?
Yes.
You had forgotten. You remembered Matt and you remembered Carrie,
Mhm.
but you had forgotten the others that you had just contacted maybe 30 minutes before.
Yes.
There were 5 people that you contacted.
I contacted Matt.
Let's go through them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know 4 off the top of my head.
Okay, let's go through them.
Okay.
You contacted your husband, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Carrie Roberts, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Peggy O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
See that?
Then, Ms. McCabe, you contacted the district attorney's office, correct?
My witness advocate.
The district attorney's office.
My witness advocate who works
Miss-
for the district attorney's
Thank you,
office.
Ms.
Yes.
McCabe. And you also left out that you contacted Brian Albert himself, correct?
Yes, my brother-in-law.
For some reason, your brother-in-law, who's the 30-year Boston police detective, correct?
Yes.
And on whose lawn John O'Keefe was found dead or dying. Objection.
I'll allow that.
Correct?
Yes.
For some reason, you did not want these officers to know that you had communicated specifically with Brian Albert, the homeowner, just before you talked to them.
FBI.
Correct?
No, incorrect.
There was some reason that was important enough for you to lie about that, even though you had been admonished that it's a crime to lie about that to those officers. Correct?
Incorrect. I didn't lie to them.
Unbelievable, Ed.
These people have a problem with the definition of lying. Okay. Now, here's another thing, folks, I want you to pay attention to if you're watching the trial, especially on the prosecutor's direct testimony, questioning. What he does with his witnesses is he leads them. And then there's going to be an objection by the defense. But by leading the question, he's giving the witness the answer in the leading question. So he'll ask a leading question that has the answer built into it. And then the defense team will object. The judge will sustain the objection, not overrule it because he asked the leading question. But then he'll rephrase the question, but now the witness already knows the answer. This is highly unethical. Okay. And also, I want you to note on redirect. Now, what is redirect? So you have your direct testimony. So the prosecutor goes first, right? And has direct testimony during the prosecutor's case in chief. Then after the prosecutor's done with their direct question, the defense cross-examines. Now, after cross-examination occurs by the defense team and they complete, the prosecutor can now do what's called redirect, which is to question the witness again based on the cross-examination questions that were posed to the witness. They are not supposed to go back to the original testimony or beyond questions that were not asked to questions that were not asked during cross-examination. That is called beyond the scope. But this judge allows the prosecutor to go beyond the scope all the time. Okay? They're only supposed to ask questions on redirect that were posed by the cross-examination. Nothing else. They can't go back to the original direct testimony and try to repair something that wasn't brought up in cross-examination. Okay? So it's happening way too often. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ed. Pee-wee's Brennan's Playhouse Adventures, $5. Thank you for the super chat. Just my opinion. The first thing Jen McCabe should have done after Karen's call was call her sister, where she had last seen her friend who she loved. None of this makes sense. It's just this trial, again, the second trial is revealing a lot. And I wanted to just play this little piece. I have like 5 of them here, but this is just the last one that I'm going to play. I want to play the beginning of this because it gives the recap here. So let's listen to this. And they talk about the potential for Jennifer McCabe perjuring herself here.
Tonight, back on the stand.
Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
Prosecution witness Jennifer McCabe cross-examined by Karen Reed's defense.
It wasn't a lie. No.
Was it true? Was it true or a lie?
It wasn't a lie.
Why she's being accused of lying to federal agents. Plus, the defense focuses on her conversations with other witnesses.
We both know what happened. We don't have to have a story. There is no story. There's what happened.
What today's grilling could mean for the defense's bid to point the finger at third-party culprits. And Karen Reed responds to McCabe's testimony.
Another witness, another instance of perjury, or instances, I'd say.
What she had to say outside of court. Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial, starts now.
We begin with a key prosecution witness in this high-profile case taking center stage yet again. Good evening, everyone. I'm JC Monahan.
And I'm Glenn Jones. Jennifer McCabe was back on the stand today, but this time she spent hours cross-examined by defense attorney Alan Jackson. One witness, a lot to unpack. Our Melanie Mendez is covering it all outside Norfolk Superior Court in Denham. Melanie, this was a marathon day for Jennifer McCabe.
It absolutely was, Glenn and JC. You put it perfectly. A marathon day, hours and hours on the stand. Now, here's the thing. We know she is a central figure in this case. We heard a whole lot from her in the first trial. But the woman that we saw on the stand today came across very, very differently. She was friendly. She was smiling, very agreeable throughout her testimony.
Ed, this is what you talked about, and that's why I wanted to play it. These reporters see they see things through a different lens. They don't understand the inner workings of courtroom testimony and how a person, a civilian who is a witness for the state, arguably a star witness for the Commonwealth, how it's perceived by professionals like myself and you and others of how she testified here. They just paint a different picture. So if someone just came across this news clip, they'd be like, oh, she did really well, right?
Mm-hmm. If that's all they saw and they didn't know anything about the case.
Now, here's the thing. There was clearly an effort that was being made for her to connect with the jury. She was making eye contact with them, often smiling broadly when she did that. And she still, though, managed to dodge some of the most important questions in the case. So take a look for yourself.
Jennifer McCabe, a key witness in this case, back on the stand. McCabe, one of three women who found John O'Keefe's body outside the Albert home. Her sister, Nicole Albert, the owner of that home. McCabe was questioned about several times where she was speaking with other witnesses and law enforcement involved in the case. Notably, McCabe saying that after O'Keefe's body was taken from outside the home, she spent hours inside the Albert home with her family discussing what had happened. She says it was during that time inside the home that she remembered Reed saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. McCabe testified about sitting down with Kerry Roberts to write a timeline of the morning O'Keefe was found. On cross-examination, defense attorney Alan Jackson started by asking McCabe when she last spoke with witness Kerry Roberts and pressed her as to whether the two discussed the case and collaborated on their testimony.
Neither one of you, your good friend Kerry Roberts and you, have ever discussed either of your testimonies between that time and this time.
No, we've discussed the case and we've discussed what happened that moment. That's my story.
As you said, that's your story, correct?
Not my story. It's
Those
the
were
truth.
yours.
Noticeably different this time around. McCabe's
He caught her. He caught her. That's your story? No, that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Ed, I want to just go a little bit off track here, a little bit, because, we look at the totality of everything that happened and transpired with the death/murder of police officer John O'Keefe. Do you find it odd? Look, we're both seasoned NYPD detectives. I don't think when we were active, and even in my retirement, I go to a lot of funerals for police officers killed in the line of duty, police officers killed off duty. We try to make for the brethren as many of these as possible. Do you find, and I'm putting you on the hot seat here, do you find it odd that Brian Albert, the homeowner of 34 Fairview, a Boston police detective, 30 years, as we heard Alan Jackson say there, do you find it odd that he and no one from his family, none of John O'Keefe's so-called friends, showed up at his funeral?
Yeah, and they loved him, right? She testified, I loved him, but they didn't go to the funeral. No, this is not reasonable behavior. It's not reasonable. Okay.
How many people in the chat find that odd? And if you do, put a 1 in the chat or put a 2 in the chat if you think it's completely okay that the homeowner where police officer John O'Keefe was found frozen and beaten to a pulp with scratches
Vomit,
all over
blood.
his arms, laying in the snow, covered
they were-
with snow.
I got to correct you there. Those were dog bite marks on his arm. That car did not make those injuries on that.
All I said was marks on the arms. I didn't say dog bites. I didn't say hit by a
Scratches.
car.
I thought you said scratches or something, but yeah.
Whatever the case may be, he is found frozen to death and beaten to a pulp on his front lawn, and you do not have the decency to go and pay respects at his funeral. A fellow brother of the BPD, that's the Boston Police Department. We go to funerals services for Boston cops. That weekend, these guys just came from, I believe, one of our police officers, I think it was Sanchez, that was killed in the line of duty. They traveled. We heard testimony that they traveled in a department car from New York up to Boston as this nor'easter was going on. So you pay respects down in New York City, but you can't pay respects for John O'Keefe, who was found on your front lawn. That gets a oh hell no from me.
Oh, hell no.
You know, let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you're new, please let us know if you're new, where you're watching, city, state, or country where you're watching from. We'd like to know who is just stumbling across our live streams. Ed, anything before we wrap up further as it pertains to day 7 in the Karen Reed retrial?
Obviously, there was much more that we could cover, but not in this short amount of time. Yeah, I am fired up. I am fired up because what is happening here with this case, and you can see that it's getting the national attention that the first trial didn't get. But what is happening here, it is tearing that community apart, and it's destroying the criminal justice system, destroying it. You know, we fight so hard for credibility. We fight so hard to get the support of the community that we serve, right? Whether it's the prosecutor's office or or it's the police. And a case like this is just tearing the fabric of our society and our criminal justice system apart. Okay. And as I said, if they can do this, right, to her, who's next? Where does it stop? Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Karen Reed could be you, could be me, could be any of us, could be anybody. And at the end of the day, the Commonwealth and all involved in this, state police, local Canton police, the state troopers. Look, Trooper Proctor, a disgrace to the Massachusetts State Police. I know that all the good troopers that are out there in the Massachusetts State Police are disgusted by what he saw and by his supervisor's remarks back to his comments about Karen Reed's body and about her condition that she has. Just such unprofessional, inappropriate, despicable things that were said. The biggest, in my opinion, the biggest embarrassment that I've seen coming out of any state police, for that matter, just it's an eyesore. It's a black eye for all good law enforcers out there. There's tons of men and women who are out there putting their lives on the line day in and day out, and working for the families. As we always say, Ed, we work for the families. We work for justice for the victims and their families.
And I'm glad you said that, because in all of this, what gets lost is justice for John O'Keefe. Okay, where is his justice? Okay, this should be about that man right there, and doing a proper investigation and identifying the actual killer of John O'Keefe.
Amen.
Remember, everybody that was at that party at that house that night that left, didn't see anybody in the front yard.
I see nothing. I hear nothing. We know
Yeah,
nothing.
they were all Sergeant Schultz's.
Everybody goes like this. And it's
Right.
despicable. It's despicable. Let's get to the super chats, Ed, because we want to highlight them all. I'm going to go right back up to the top. Jeff, thank you for being here. Member for over 2 years. He said, this is the best TV tonight. Ed has been doing great. DutyRon's the man. Thank you so much, Jeff. We appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. We know Ed's hot button stupidity on the stand. Absolutely. Jarheads to JD. Thank you so much. She said he or she says the Commonwealth video today. Jennifer McCabe waits at Brian Albert's door. The exterior light goes on. It proves AB's door is locked and person inside AB house was up and turned on exterior light. Thank you for that super chat. And yeah, it showed a lot. We're gleaming quite a bit from this retrial. Clicker AK, thank you for becoming a member. Grains Neverland, thank you for being a member for 4 months. There's one in every crowd. Absolutely. Michael Joseph Murray shares all our videos, Ed, all over the place. Twitter, X, Facebook. Thank you, Michael, for all you do, and thank you for being a member. Occam's Razor, I highlighted this one already. Clicker AK says, I like a fired up Ed, totally fair. KH became a new member. Evie, who's been around for a long time, she says she was coached poorly, I might add. And I know you probably agree with that. KH also sends in $20 and said, great coverage of this trial. Thank you, Free Karen Reed. Beamer, look, moderator, great friend, Lexi and Beamer, sisters. Thank you, DutyRon and Ed, for the updates. We thank you. We appreciate you. Amber, thank you for the $5. Friends, we have 1,600 watching, only a few hundred likes. What? Oh, we got to correct that. If you guys can right now, I know, Ed, you make pleas to our friends to like and share. Please, everybody hit that thumbs up for Ed and I. We appreciate you.
Put that DNA on the like button.
There you go. I was waiting for you to say that, Ed. Deborah Guzman, a member for over 20 months. She's been waiting all day to hear from our favorite guys. Thank you, Deborah. Pee-wee, I think I highlighted this one. Yes, we did. We highlighted that one already. Thank you for the super chat. Look, Evie, that's the History Chick's mom. She gifted 5 memberships. Thank you for that. And I think we did cover this super chat as well. Oh, no, we didn't. Look at this one, Ed.
Yeah. And additionally, as HR executive, have worked with PD's tested officers, including psych testing and psychiatrist coordination. Bad people slip through regardless of the best efforts. Amen. It does.
It's so true. So true. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. Ed, what do you think? 5 minutes of questions from the audience?
Yeah, shoot. Fire away.
As it pertains to the testimony today of Jennifer McCabe, and we'll hear it again on Friday. No court tomorrow. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. Put your questions in the chat and we'll try to answer them. This is a chance to get at Ed or myself and maybe get our thoughts. Ed, you did some great short videos for us. You talked about the Cellbrite, the cell phone expert. That seemed to be a colossal fail for the Commonwealth. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there were several issues there. I think he got ahead of his skis. I think he went beyond his area of expertise, and he should have just stuck to the software. Then he did a freaking infomercial from the stand. He did an infomercial about his free software. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And here's another thing. While he was doing that demo, I think he was using his free software and not Cellbrite, which should not have been allowed, because he said the glitch in the Cellbrite software was that the time shown for the Google search was from the time that the Google app was originally opened. Okay. But I think he used his software, which doesn't make sense to me. Okay. And he said they fixed the glitch. They took it out of the Cellbrite program. So if they took it out, then what version was he using, and how did the glitch still occur?
Right.
In his demo.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. Erin Hilt says, I'm late, but what's your opinion so far on the defense?
I think they're doing a good job. I think, remember, it's the defense's job. They don't have to prove their client innocent. They just have to create reasonable doubt.
Right.
And I see reasonable doubt so far from witness number one.
Right. Yeah. This is a great one from Dolores. Dog didn't wake up when Jennifer McCabe came into a dark house into the bedroom. Fugitive enforcement officer Brian Albert, he worked in the warrant squad, left the door, front door wide open. I found that very odd in the beginning.
Well, not open, unlocked.
Unlocked, but who leaves their house unlocked when you had a party? There's a nor'easter coming. We know from being in law enforcement, when there's major weather events, that's when criminals take advantage of breaking into cars, breaking into homes. People's power go out. You don't have alarms going off. You make sure that your house, your cars are double secured during storms. This was a major nor'easter. They knew it was coming, and you're telling me that you left your door wide open and people just tromped in, came into your bedroom. The dog Chloe didn't bark at Jennifer. She came in the middle of the night. Oh my God, John's dead on your front lawn. No barking? Bullshit.
I got one right here. Hold on.
Oh wait, I wanted to highlight this one. Where did it go? Somebody asked. Pudgy said, "Hey, DutyRon, how do you and Ed know each other? Did you work together? I never heard your history." No, we got introduced by another detective who worked with Ed's wife, Timmy.
Timmy Acosta.
Thank you, Timmy Acosta. He introduced us in 2021 when I was covering the Christine.
I can't remember her last name. It was a young college co-ed who was on spring break in Florida, Daytona Beach, if I remember, or was it Fort Lauderdale? I can't remember.
She was in Miami on spring break, and she was murdered.
It was Miami, but anyway.
Yeah.
She was murdered and drugged and raped, and then they stole her cards and her cash, and they went to ATMs and withdrew. There were two drug dealers from North Carolina that came down to Florida to take advantage of these spring breakers. And I was the crime scene expert that he wanted to talk about all things crime scene. But let me highlight this, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Sharon creates, Ed, will we ever see the truth? Sharon, there's a famous quote. There are three things that can't be hidden for very long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And who said that? Buddha.
Buddha. So Princess Mitch has 2021, and the rest is history. Yes. She says, we appreciate you both tremendously, immensely. Thank you so much for that. So I don't see any others, but Ed, we're going to find it. We're going to follow this trial. We're going to keep doing updates and so forth. Thank you, Christine Engelhardt. Yeah. And you know what? The crazy part about that whole case is not only was she murdered while on spring break, another male was murdered by fentanyl poisoning by the same perps. He was from, I believe, Indiana or Illinois. And it happened on the same weekend. And both the parents of Christine and the male victim are, trying to get justice for their families. What do you got, Ed?
Yeah, I was asking about the opinions on the arm, the injuries on the arm. I already said this is the dog bite. It's from the shepherd. You know what's also funny? One of John's shoes is missing, never found.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Could it be because the dog took it and the dog's DNA was all over it, so they had to get rid of it?
Yeah.
Ooh, so during a fight at that location between John O'Keefe and his attackers, the dog gets involved and jumps in. Okay.
Somebody asked what channel we watch the trial on, and I haven't, because I've been away. I've been down in Florida visiting with my son, and I've also been getting medical attention at Sloan Kettering. Ed, you said you watched the Law and Crime and Court TV, right?
I've watched a bunch today.
Yeah. So Ed's all over the place. He's watching and he's taking notes. So it's
and then certain attorneys that I like to watch every once in a while that I believe are good, fair YouTubers. I am disgusted with all that I've seen and the evidence or the lack thereof, and the lack of integrity, ethics is out the window. You know, corruption, you name it. This case has it all.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Melanie is on every day, 6-7 hours, however long it takes. Emily.
Yeah, I've been on Melanie's chat. I've been in there watching with Melanie.
Yeah, it's great. Great coverage, and they are dedicated to, finding justice for John O'Keefe. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
That's
all
right.
I want to just say thank you for watching. Again, I want to put John's face at the forefront because this trial, although Karen Reed, we believe, is not the perpetrator who murdered John O'Keefe. She does stand charged with that, but this is who it's about, and justice for him and his family. All the things that we've heard about John O'Keefe taking care of, stepping up for his sister's children when she passed and her husband passed, and the whole story is just unbelievable. And to see this unfold is heartbreaking for me, and I know it is for you too, Ed, because it's a miscarriage of justice. And just seeing the way Canton and the various state police personnel handled this case, it's everything that's wrong. They did everything that is wrong when it comes to evidence preservation, evidence collection. I mean, we could go on and on about the solo cups and the snow blower, the leaf blower, blowing snow away, and all the craziness that is involved in this. But at the end of the day, it's really about John and his family. And that's what we want to keep at the forefront. So on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to thank you for watching our videos. We want to thank you for giving the thumbs up and spending your time, because we value your time. We do not take any of you as subscribers and friends and people who become channel members for granted. We are so thankful because we know your time is valuable. You could be watching anybody else, but we are thankful that you're here. We're thankful that you watch, and we love when you leave us comments down below in the comment section. Our live chatting audience and replay audience are crucial to our channel success. We're close to 500,000 subscribers. We're almost at 480,000, 20,000 more, Ed, and we're at that 500, and that's what Josh was pushing for before he passed away, our producer. So I want to say thank you to all the moderators, the Patreon supporters, the Buy Me Cups of Coffee, the folks who send us super chats, super thanks, all the support that you give us. We love it. We thank you, and we honor you guys, and we respect you all. Ed, I know you always have something to say at the end of these.
Yes, thanks for being here, folks, spending this time with us. I know you can get your true crime fix anywhere on the internet you like. But thanks for your support, and thanks for getting me all riled up today. No, you didn't do that. That was just the case. But I always say, stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six, folks. And we'll catch you on the next one. And I'll see, for those of you who are following the trial, I'll see you on Friday.
Amen. I'll be watching as well because I'm back in the saddle. So we'll see you all soon. Peace and love from Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Maybe Forensic Friday. Maybe we'll do something Friday night. So we'll see. Good night, guys, from New York, and we'll see you soon.